deliver my content as a voiceover along with the presentation. Our project, the work that we are trying to highlight is called Sadbhavana. Uh, it's an initiative to promote social harmony, and this is in the context of a recent rise in uh, in communal and social disturbances in the state of Andhra Pradesh, and how we have conceptualized and given shape to this initiative to counter that from multiple points of view. Sadbhavana, as we're all aware, in many Indian languages, it means roughly good faith or goodwill. So that this, what you see on the screen, I mean, that's the poster, the flex banner backdrop, which we use to conduct our meetings. All our meetings have this banner which we use. It sort of represents, Sarvadharm Sampan, that sort of sentiment. The idea was to prepare individuals and society as a whole to be resilient and cohesive in the face of provocations. I mean, it isn't possible for the police to guard everywhere all the time. So it is inevitable that now and then there will be incidents, even willful provocations. But then we have to prepare the society to be resilient to such provocations. We have to sort of do a little bit of social engineering, as you would, to make the society resilient. And police has a very definite role to play in that. And that's what we try to do in our attempt with Sadbhavana. So the background here is in the first week of September, a very ancient religious structure, one Lord Lakshmi Narasimha Swami temple in East Godavari district of Andhra Pradesh. It had a major alleged arson incident. It's believed to be a 1,000-year-old chariot that was gutted, and a lot of sentiments were hurt. And that also was capitalized upon by certain elements in the society to then to divide a rift between communities. There was an attempt to see it as a larger conspiracy. The investigation still goes on into that incident. So, I perhaps do better not to comment specifically on that incident too much. But just to say that, that really sort of became a flashpoint, which then started a series of tit-for-tat provocations on many social media groups. You had certain individuals and leaders talking about a particular religion being under threat from a particular other religion. You had politicians making statements. You had social media trends with a lot of negativity and a lot of communal content. And there was a fear that in our state of Andhra Pradesh, this could be a entry point for a very divisive kind of political process, which so far has not happened. Andhra Pradesh is one of those states where all communities live and coexist very peacefully. There is hardly any communal sentiment in Andhra Pradesh. I mean, the first identity, most people of Andhra Pradesh identify first as, participants of the Telugu civilization, Telugu culture, and everything else, the caste and religious affiliations come secondary to that. So there was a real concern in the government amongst the people that it should not become a flashpoint. And unfortunately, after this, a few other incidents also happened. There was a desecration of a Mother Mary statue in the same district. And then there were a few other similar kind of incidents in some other districts. And there was an attempt consciously to try to connect all of them together and then drive a wedge between communities. And of course, whenever there is such an attempt, there is always a counter attempt to counter mobilize and counter capitalize on that. So that was the context in which we thought that we have to respond to this, and as police, we are very centrally, singularly placed, situated to do so. So Sadbhavana was an attempt to respond to this issue and this trend that was emerging and which was coming forward. So Sadbhavana as a program, we had two sort of broad pillars which we wanted to focus on. One was a very operational, sort of a tactical approach, a typical policeman's approach, which is to first initiate systematic, large-scale steps to secure the places of worship. All the churches, the mosques, the temples. The security of these places of worship was thus far a somewhat neglected subject. So we thought, we have to first take measures to do that. At the same time, we wanted to initiate a series of preventive actions. I mean, as police, we have certain preventive powers at our disposal and certain procedures and enforcement techniques that we use to do that. And then we also had to create a whole new surveillance network because, as I told you, thus far in the state of Andhra Pradesh, we hadn't in a large way focused on creating a surveillance over potential bad actors in this context. So that this operational aspect was there. I mean, there can be no sadbhavna or goodwill if these incidents continue to happen, if churches kept on getting attacked, if temples kept on getting attacked, or if there were incidents which kept on happening, providing excuses to then build upon negative sentiments on top. So first and foremost, before any sentimental or emotional or socio-psychological intervention, we had to ensure that operationally we maximize the security and minimize the opportunity and occasion to create mischief. So that was the sort of the operational pillar of Sadbhavana. The second one was sociological, as I said. We had to sort of engineer interfaith understanding. We had to engage the communities together. We had to engage the community leaders. We had to start a dialogue and cultivate and nurture a certain resilience that if something happens, even if something happens, it shouldn't immediately lead to ill will. It shouldn't immediately lead to any rupture. It shouldn't open the door to any kind of a negative politics or a negative, direct action thereafter. So that resilience had to be cultivated, that cohesion had to be built. So that was the second pillar, the sociological pillar, as we would usually call it here. So far as the security of the places of worship were concerned, we actually carried out an extensive survey all over the district. And in fact, subsequently, the same exercise was adopted statewide. And all over the state, this was carried out. All the churches, all the mosques, all the temples were surveyed. We did a security audit. We spoke to the committees. We advised them to install CCTV cameras. We mobilized the devotees and the believers to take steps to secure them. We even had these simple but effective interventions like making somebody sleep there at night time. At the same time, we started reviewing pending cases. There are habitual offenders who find it very easy to commit offenses in temples and mosques because they're usually not very highly guarded and they're very accessible to the public as places of worship ought to be. So we took some security measures all over the district following a systematic security audit. I'll have the figures at the end. I've compiled all the figures in the end so that I can then go through over them. Next, preventive actions. I mean, as I said, it was very important to build up resilience. So that had to come from the community itself. So we had to mobilize the community. We had to bring about a consciousness amongst the community members that, such and such trend or such and such development is occurring statewide, and we're all going to be subject to it, and we have to be aware of it, and we have to be resilient in the face of it. So we really engaged all the communities. We engaged the community leaders. We engaged community members. We engaged women. We got NGOs to support us. We had social media outreach. So essentially, we conducted a lot of meetings of, we call them Sadbhavana meetings. You can see that on the screen, that little backdrop that's written Sadbhavana in Telugu. So we conducted these little events, which we called Sadbhavana meetings, where essentially we gathered members of the communities, often together, and we discuss the problems out in the open, because our belief was that if people are engaged in listening to the problem and are trying to find a solution, they will not become a part of the problem tomorrow when circumstances deteriorate, and if they do. We also have a volunteer system in Andhra Pradesh, like most of the South Indian states, and we really got them involved in a big way, along with the police, in this manner as well, in this matter as well. Surveillance, as I told you, we had to really set up a proper surveillance system. We had to prepare a master data. We did geotagging of all the temples, mosques, churches. We did security auditing. We did social media monitoring. This was something that we did quite well, I believe, because we tried. I mean, this is a sort of a operational detail. I shouldn't be revealing too much of it, but suffice to say that a lot of this activity, a lot of this hatred, and a lot of these bigoted comments, they're usually made in these WhatsApp groups, which are closed groups, and it allows for a free run of communal ideas amongst all communities. So we put in place certain measures so as to be able to effectively monitor them. So we have been able to now. We have some sort of a grip on the social media chatter in those particular groups where these things usually originate and then flare up from there onward. So we are in a position to sort of have a early detection, and we have been doing that in certain cases as well. Perhaps this is as much as one can reveal about this thing at this stage. But this was a totally new system that we set up post that incident. So this incident happened in the first week of September. We are in the second week of October right now. So all this we were able to really accomplish in a very short time, about a month and a half. Already I spoke of Sadbhavana meetings. In this month and a half itself, we've already conducted over 250 meetings, which have been attended by more than 12,000 members of different communities. And again, it is a totally, the whole purpose here. I mean, so far as the operational aspect that I spoke of earlier, I mean, that is an entirely police-driven, police-led exercise. But even there, the CC cameras, etc., are all being funded and provided for by the donors and by the people themselves. I mean, we don't have any budget for this. So this is basically a zero budget initiative. I mean, what I'm speaking of, all the social and the security benefits here have come at zero cost to the government. It is all mobilizing the social capital. And that has been the approach in the social engineering or the sociological interventions. Entirely just getting the community as a whole, the body corporate of the public, to reflect, introspect, and develop that consciousness that there is something that we have to be alert about. So these are the figures. I mean, I may just quickly go through them. I mean, we've had 250 meetings attended by 12,000 members. 6,708 religious structures have already been mapped out. Their security audit has been done. 235 WhatsApp groups are under constant surveillance. 506 peace committees or Sadbhavana committees have been formed. 690 additional CC cameras have been installed at important places of worship. I might put that in perspective by saying that before we started on the 5th of September in our district, the total number of CC cameras in all the religious structures in the district was 435. And in this 1 month, we have additionally added 690 cameras. So we've more than doubled in the last 1 month the existing CC camera grid coverage. Then, volunteer guards, watchmen, local devotees, 861 of them have been mobilized and asked to perform this sort of a social guard and watch duty at religious places. Volunteers, I've already told you, we have a volunteer system in Andhra Pradesh. We have a volunteer for every 50 houses. They were drafted into this exercise. So 1,785 of them have been mobilized for this purpose. We identified all the existing disputes. So there are often disputes between communities over a piece of land which is being used for some graveyard or for some construction of a religious structure, or the route of a procession during a particular festival. So those such potential issues, we identified 55 of them, and then really got together and solve them amicably. I mean, these issues don't really get solved forever. So it's a constant effort. So we were able to engage everybody in the process of finding a solution, which is the best we can hope for usually in these circumstances. Then I told you, under the law, we have certain provisions which we use for preventive action. CRPC, Criminal Procedure Code, provides for certain steps to be taken to prevent bad actors from executing their bad actions. So we identified more than 4,000 people across the district. So these were all profiles we drew up, of people who we thought in the future were a provocation to happen. They'd be the ones to do it. So such people were identified and they were proceeded against. Similarly, there is a Public Safety Act. I mean, this exists in all states in various
Sorry
regards.
for interruption, Mr. Siddharth. I'm so sorry for that.
Yeah.
You have 3 minutes left. Can we
Yeah,
conclude?
at the end. Thank you, Shivam. Thanks. So we have a Public Safety Act in Andhra Pradesh, which is there in all states in different garbs. We serve notices to management of the temples and mosques, etc., to take steps. Of course, more than 2,000 people were bound over under various security measures. These are some of the media coverage. I mean, we got a lot of Telugu media coverage, but I chose to sort of select the English one so that everybody can understand. We kept on taking action, and we made sure it was publicized so that the confidence comes in the public, because it is a process which is also psychological and socio-psychological in nature. People need to feel secure about it. That insecurity shouldn't be there amongst people. So that's what our effort has been, and I'm quite proud of the efforts that our team has put. In a very short time, we've been able to streamline this initiative. Already, it has been implemented statewide. All these actions are being done all over the state now. So the state of Andhra Pradesh, the Andhra Pradesh Police, the government of Andhra Pradesh, all have been very, very focused and vigorous in their response to this threat. So this is what we wanted to share with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think you have been doing a very tedious job, I would rather say, because these problems may not be social problems only, or even if they are social problems, they become political problems, or they become socio-political. So it's very, very difficult to really know whether it is an action or it is a reaction of some earlier action. So police role becomes very, very important. See, what I understand from your presentation is that you have done good job, but I think it has to be on a continuous basis. One clarification, by the way, were you conducting meetings community-wise or area-wise?
We were doing both, sir. We conducted. So it happened at a local level where we conducted it locality-wise, mandal-wise, subdivision-wise. We did it at the district level also. I myself participated in a few. Many times when it was to do with the security of a religious structure, we conducted it with the members of that religious community. Many times when it was about, in general, about social cohesion, we did it with members of multiple religious communities present, and it was also involving other departments of the government, sir.
So what do you think is your biggest learning from in this entire process? You might have also heard about Delhi or UP, these communal socio-political or social communal sort of riots which have happened recently. So what has been your learning from the way you have handled your scenario?
So, Ismail, the biggest learning has been that we have to cultivate resilience in the minds of the people. We have to, incidents might happen, and as you correctly pointed out, there is no clear logic to say whether it's a social process, it's a political process, or at what point in history did it start? Is it a contemporary process, or does it have deeper historical roots? So, given all of that, what we can do at present and as a law enforcement official, what we really learned was that the best that one can do in such situations is to create a consciousness amongst the people, is to get them engaged together on this issue, so that tomorrow, as and when something happens, and if something happens, there is no rupture. There is no, the social fabric does not come apart. If and we have observed that when there is good interfaith understanding, and when people are already engaged and anticipating that something might happen or something can happen, when it does happen, then everybody's cooperation we are able to solicit, and we are able to counter if there is a bad actor who's intentionally doing it. There are times when there are people all around, 360-degree in all groups, who may like to capitalize on situations. So at least we can prevent the bad actors from capitalizing on the situation. uh, to what extent can we actually shape the sentiments or the deep rooted feelings amongst people, is a question that we have to sort of face on a continuous basis. As I said, it's something that has to be ongoing. It can't be an event or an intervention only. uh, but getting that resilience, that cohesion is important, is what we have learned. Apart from all the tactical levels, we discovered many things, that there were so many temples, so many mosques which are not listed, not registered. There were so many pending land disputes. There were no security measures in place at many temples, etc., etc. So all those tactical ground level understandings are there, but profoundly, from what I understand, at the perspective with which you're speaking, profoundly our learning has been that engaging the community, mobilizing the community, creating a consciousness in the community is the best way to prevent any rupture in the social fabric in the future.
Good. Thank you
Uh,
very much.
Thank you, sir.
Very well said on all these things. I must give you all the credit. I have only one question. How have you managed the media? Because what I am finding today, it is with all the good intentions, I think media is really not doing the job what it is supposed to be doing. And unfortunately, a lot of media debates, instead of creating cohesion, are actually creating division. Because the way people speak on media debates, instead of creating cohesion, they create division. So I'm finding that's one of the biggest challenge which is there. Fortunately, in your case, I think media was too much involved with Sushant Singh Rajput and other things, and it did not give that importance to whatever happened. It didn't give the news was not that well covered, or it was not exploited by the political and the media for their TRPs.
Sir, in fact,
It must be because of some efforts which you have made.
there are a couple of things there. So, first was that, uh, so we started, as I said, we started the operational aspects. So there was a very, very definite attempt, and unfortunately, it's an ongoing attempt. I mean, you still see those headlines and allegations floating in the Telugu media, and briefly, very briefly, it was attempted to be done via the English media, national media as well. Our DGP himself went on that particular channel and sort of countered the narrative. But it is true, sir. Media is an issue, uh, but thankfully, because media is by and large free, so we are able to project our side of the narrative as well. For instance, we caught a few temple offenders. A few offences had occurred in temples in our district as well. We were able to catch them. We were able to show to the media, and we made it a point to tell that this is a habitual offender who is a drunkard. He's done it for getting money for his alcohol addiction. This is a juvenile delinquent. He has a previous history. So we were able to clarify that there is regular petty offenders behind these incidents, and there isn't any larger conspiracy. So we were able to, by and large, convince the public of Andhra Pradesh that there isn't any larger conspiracy afoot, and that the police, the government is doing its job. And even if there is, there will be no attempt to hide or deny it, and we'll be very forthright about it, and we'll be very alert and active on it. So as I said, you saw the volume of activity that has happened in the last 1.5 months on this. So that now, by and large, I believe the public in Andhra Pradesh has an impression that even if the issues are there, even if some of the public, a section of the public believes that there is a conspiracy or there is some evil design. Even they believe that the police and the machinery is sincere, and the alacrity with which we are responding to every incident, it has more or less hasn't given the opportunity for anything, any rumor or any speculation or any grand design to run away in the media. So overall, I mean, it's a tricky thing, sir. I mean, even today, something happens, I'm not certain that we'll be able to contain it. I mean, it's sort of the very chaotic as a phenomena, the media and what things go viral in media. But by and large, we have been able to counter it effectively, to the extent that people in Andhra Pradesh, the people of Andhra Pradesh, who are the target audience for us, who are the ones whose sentiments and consciousness we'd like to mold, they by and large believe that we're doing a sincere job, and that's what we'd like to keep it that way, sir.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think you have done a good job. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next presentation.
Sure. So thank you so much, Mr. Sal. Now we'll have Mr. Sushant Saurabh Jha, Sub-Inspector of Police from Lower Dibang Valley District Police, for the project Ring Police Response to COVID. So, Mr. Sushant, you may present, please. Can we have Mr. Sushant?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah.
I am Sub-Inspector